Chapter 2. The Hiding Place. It was summer, and for that Pixel was thankful. He knew it wouldn't be too cold at night and that they would, at the least, not freeze to death. As far as what creatures, maybe even coyotes, that lurked in the dark, he didn't even want to think about. Besides, the issue of food was a prime concern as his little tummy was growling, and so was Mozzel's. Insofar as suggesting bright ideas, Mozzel hadn't been much help since taking the lead on the dash to freedom at Old Lady Hawley's. He sat there in silence with his nose sniffing away.
"What are you doing?"
exclaimed Pixel, worried that they had a problem to solve and Mozzel was doing nothing more than thinking of hamburger scraps. All of a sudden, it dawned on him.
"That's it!"
cried Pixel.
"You smell food! Which way? Which way? Let's go. I think it's safe now."
Off they went in the dark, slowly but surely following Mozzel's nose through the woods. They stopped at what looked like a big house facing Weano Avenue, and nobody seemed to be at home. The sign said Peter Church or something like that. There were some big bushes near the back door, and it looked safe underneath. Perfect spot to rest. They held up for a half hour or so before setting out again, along the edge of a long gravel drive. It was quiet, but they began to hear a strange sound, a whoosh, whoosh, like the wind, but there was barely a breeze. After a few more feet, they saw it. They were near the sea. Poking their noses out from the tall grass, they saw the gentle waves lapping against the sandy shore. The water seemed to go on forever and ever, as big as the sky. The only thing either Mozzel or Pixel knew about the sea was that it was where the fish live. They had heard the cats talking about it at the animal shelter, but who can trust what cats say? It certainly was a sight to see. But where was the food? The scent Mozzel had caught was not that of fish, but of fast food tossed in a rubbish can at the end of a small parking lot. They approached cautiously, hoping to find at least a morsel to satisfy their hunger. Just as they neared the trash can, however, a big seagull, 2.5 times as tall as Pixel and just as tall as Mozzel. He wasn't very nice at all. In a shrill, shrieking voice, he cried, "Mine! Mine! Mine!" Then lowered his head and snapped his long yellow beak open and shut. Mozzel and Pixel had never encountered a big seagull before, and they didn't know what to do. They backed up a bit, but soon realized that retreat wasn't exactly going to fill their bellies. Mozzel growled and yapped, perturbed that this greedy bird was keeping them from whatever it was that smelled so good. Pixel joined in, barking and darting forward and back. It worked. The big seagull lifted skyward with the flap of his wings and careened far out of sight. Mozzel and Pixel advanced on the bags and wrappers that littered the ground around the trash can. Jackpot! One bag provided a half-eaten hamburger and fries. Another bag had a wilted salad that neither of them liked, and another bag had a melted ice cream, which they eagerly lapped up. It wasn't perfect, but it was dinner, and it was good. Just then, they heard a scraping sound on the gravel and the roar of an engine. A big car was pulling into the parking area. It was coming fast. Around the bend it came with bright white headlights shining on the seagrass. They were almost caught in the glare. They'd be spotted for sure. Quick as a flash, Mozzel and Pixel darted back into the woods and crouched down. The car stopped, and a man got out. He was headed toward the trash can. Mozzel and Pixel darted deeper into the woods before the man knew they were there. Looking around for a safe spot, they scurried along what looked like an old path between the fronds of seagrass. All of a sudden, the ground, it seemed to turn to wood beneath their feet. It was an old dock that must have washed up on the shore. On one side, there was an opening through which it was easy to squeeze to a sheltered area below. Like the food, it wasn't perfect, but for now, it was the only shelter they had. For too many days to count, Muzzle and Pixel hid under the dock by day and ventured out after dark to scavenge for food around the trash can. Some days there was nothing to eat. Other days they got their fill. Men, women, and children visited the beach on nice days, sometimes even other dogs. But the pair stayed out of sight. Sometimes in the early morning, when everything was quiet, they would venture out onto the beach. Pixel would scowl his little brow and think about how to get to the dog library. He knew the seasons were changing and that soon it would be fall. The rains would come, and it would be cold out, too cold to live under an old abandoned dock. When the big storm finally hit, Muzzle and Pixel hunkered down and snuggled together, trying to stay warm. For the most part, the old dock above their heads kept them dry. But it was the ground below that ultimately betrayed them. The water level began to rise, and the ground grew damp. At first, they were able to move away from the growing puddle crowding against the back edge of their hideaway, but before long everything was wet, and it was cold. They knew it was time to go. There was no choice. Nothing near the water would be safe. After some debate and a little bit of squabbling, it was settled. They would head toward town in search of the dog library. And hopefully, thought Pixel, the nice lady. Chapter 3. Setting Out in Search of the Dog Library. It was now or never. Out from under the dock they went into the pelting rain. The faster they made it to their hoped-for destination, the better off and drier they would be. Down the gravel path they went, away from the sea toward the big road. They knew they could cut through backyards and so avoid being seen on the road for as long as possible. The raindrops bounced off the ground and blinded them as they ran, Muzzle in the lead and Pixel quick behind. Into and out of one yard they darted and into the next, steadily charting a course toward town. As they cut through one yard, they saw lights on inside a home. It looked warm and dry inside, thought Pixel, but he soldiered on, his fur now completely soaked from head to the tip of his little tail. Muzzle kept up a steady pace, occasionally looking back to make sure his companion was keeping up. Before long, they saw that big house, which belonged to Peter Church, whoever he was. Around the back they went and slipped under the bushes which flanked the rear door. The rhododendron bushes were big and had grown for many years. It wasn't bone dry underneath, but close to it. The two huddled together in a deep corner where it was comfortable. There they spent the night. By morning, the rain had stopped. It was a sunny day, if not a little cold. Without any food, Muzzle and Pixel would have to decide on a course of action without delay.
"Tonight we make for the town,"
said Pixel, adding,
"We'll follow the direction of the big road, for that goes straight past the dog library. But we will travel whenever possible in the yards that line the big road. We don't want to be seen."
A bit disillusioned by their plight and night in the cold rain, Muzzle replied,
"There is no dog library, Pixel. But if we're headed toward town, that's good. We can find out if there's some food behind Wimpy's restaurant or maybe Five Bays Bistro. Maybe a nice kitchen worker will feed us at the back door." "So you have been to the village,"
said Pixel.
"Then you must have seen the dog library. It's just up the hill from Wimpy's, across from the post office. I've seen buildings and people and cars in the village, but never a dog library,"
replied Muzzle, whose knowledge of village geography seemed limited to only opportunities for food.
"It's there, you'll see,"
said Pixel, who added,
"We'll stop to see if we can find some food first, and then we'll see if we can spot the nice lady. She parks behind the dog library and is there all the time." "You and the nice lady and the dog library,"
scoffed Muzzle.
"Our best chance is to find someone nice at a kitchen door who will toss us scraps. That's all you can hope for. That's all I've ever known since I was abandoned as a puppy."
Mazel looked sad and tired. He was tired, and so was Pixel. Pixel suggested they get some sleep so they would have some energy for the big trip at nightfall. They rested through the afternoon and were not bothered. Once or twice, a passing squirrel looked in on them, but for the most part, they just rested the day away.